Okay, good afternoon. So it's 2 o'clock, and one of the principles of Trinity is everything starts on time. So we'll get going. So I'm Philip Lane. I'm head of economics here in Trinity. So I'm going to give a relatively brief talk, and then I'm very happy to take questions. First of all, from the floor, and then second, I'll stay on afterwards if you just want to ask me something directly. So economics at TCD, there's obviously two dimensions. One is the decision to study economics somewhere, and then the second decision is why Trinity. So in terms of the general idea of why to study economics, is that it's a very general discipline. It cuts across many different areas of society, of business, and so on. So, it's something that, if you're 17 or 18, it's very hard to know what you want to do in life. With economics, it's a very classic general discipline to study in college, that it leaves the door open to many future careers. And also, in what you study, I think it proves useful, as I say, along many different dimensions. So the first thing to say is, 99 out of 100 people do not become a professional economist. So to become a professional economist, it's a relatively specialized area. So you definitely might study undergraduate economics, but then you go on and specialize at postgrad level. So most people coming out of Trinity Economics are going to do something else. And that's perfectly understood. And we teach it on that basis. There's a very small, every year, there's some classes towards the final year where only 10 or 15 people might take it because they're the guys who are on that kind of professional economics track. For everyone else, economics is taught on the basis of people studying it for indirect reasons. So one group are people in the end who want to go into the corporate sector, the private sector. And clearly there's one strand of economics, it relates to financial economics. So you can do an economics degree with a big finance component, and clearly investment banking and so on would use a lot of economics. Hedge funds, as these days with the European crisis, with the end of tapering in the US and so on, the people in hedge funds trying to work out whether interest rates are going to rise or fall, which countries are going to get into trouble and so on, they're macroeconomists. And basically, they would have come from an economics background. Even if you're not interested in that kind of finance macro sphere, the other big area of application is in terms of strategy. Because a big part of economics is working out how firms and households make decisions. So, for example, Amazon, Google, all of those guys use economists quite a bit. So Google has a chief economist. They hire a lot of economists because they have to work out pricing for their ads. So, if you're trying to work out on any given day, what kind of ad should we charge a high price for? What kind of ad should we charge a low price for? That's essentially using microeconomics, using demand and supply concepts to look at pricing. Same for retailers like Tesco. All of those guys use a lot of economics. The big corporates, oil firms, lots of firms would hire people essentially who are using economics on a day-to-day basis. So on top of that kind of corporate sector life, another route people take is to follow an economics degree with a law or accounting professional qualification, because those are quite powerful concepts. Every day if you read the papers, there's a legal case going on with this big economics component. So, the government's being sued every day about what they did with the banks. They're hiring economists, well, most of all, they're hiring lawyers who have an economics background to work out what was kind of a reasonable economic strategy. So lots of law cases revolve around economics. And same for accounting. There's a very close line between economics and accounting in some areas. Another big area people go into is essentially policy, the policy world. So that could be working for the central bank, could be working for the Department of Finance, could be working for a regulator, it could be working for the European Commission, and so on. There's lots of agencies or departments which use economics on a day-by-day basis. And recently, just last year, here in Ireland, there was set up something called the Government Economic and Evaluation Service, which looks set to become, they hired 30 people last year, and that's going to be, every year, every 2 years, they're going to hire a lot of people who are going to be working as government economists. After the crisis, one of the lessons here were there were not enough economists in the system. People who would be used to looking at risk factors, housing bubbles, and so on. So that area is set to get bigger. The good news from the crisis is demand for economists has gone up because there's a recognition you do need actually to spend some time working out economic decisions. And again, that could be macro from the central bank, Department of Finance. It could be micro. Should we build a metro system in Dublin? How should we run the healthcare system? Should we have it all, a single insurer? Should we have competition across hospitals? If you provide GPs with incentives to provide extra services, what's going to happen? So lots of, across every area of policy, there's always going to be an economics angle to those questions. And then maybe the last category I listed here is public affairs, which includes media. So again, if you, listen to the news every day, a large fraction of the stories are either directly economic or they're about the politics, where the political questions in the end about what you should do with the budget, what you should do with banks and so on, in the end come down to economics. So if you're interested, by the way, in media, doing an undergraduate journalism degree is not a good idea because you need to have some skills. So learning economics then puts you in a good position to write later on or be in the broadcast area. So that's on one side, on the media side. On the other side of that are lobbyists. So in public affairs, people representing companies or representing different interest groups who lobby the government, who lobby media. Again, there's lots of economics in that area. So, from there you can see it's not that hard for our graduates to spread out across an amazing diversity of careers. It's worth noting economics is essentially the same subject around the world, so it's a very global, mobile career. So an economics degree from Trinity would be recognised. If people look at your transcript, they can say, yeah, that's the course you would have taken here in Canada or in Australia, whatever. It's more or less exactly the same undergraduate degree around the world. Now, what kind of students are suited to doing economics? So one way to think about it is the ideal mix is you're halfway between be it a quantitative source and a qualitative source. So if you are good with, in terms of doing mathematics or statistics and quants in general and science, there's definitely lots of areas of economics which rewards quantitative skill. On the other hand, if that's all you're good at, there are areas of economics which are going to be difficult because when you think about policy making and so on, you also need to understand history, you also need to understand social studies and so on. So it's an area which is, it's a paradox. Because it's in the middle of so many different other areas, what it means is the ideal student is interested in lots of different dimensions. You're interested in how society works, you're interested in how businesses work, and so on. So what that means is there's also a lot of crossover across disciplines. So there's lots of interaction, say, between economics and psychology. There's interaction between economics and political science, economics and sociology. It's an area which kind of cuts across a lot of different areas. So what is true is, in the end, we find, and the course is set up to allow specialization, because some types they just want to be a quantitative, they know the career is going to be quantitative, and they want to focus on that. So that kind of quantitative technical stream is there. So in years 3 and 4, you can focus on those subjects. On the other hand, if you really dislike that quantitative approach, after you've done the first couple of years where there's required, introductory level quants, the advanced courses are not required. You can go into other areas which are more kind of multidisciplinary in nature. And also, the other big split is within the kind of technical area, there are kind of technical economics courses, which for those who know they want to go on and do postgrad in economics. And there's quite a few technical finance courses, which again are for those who are intent on going to London or New York or whatever to pursue financial careers. So then the second question is, if you want to study economics, why here? So there are different ways to do economics in Trinity. And under all of these ways, by the way, in the end, it's kind of, you start off with different combinations of subjects, but in the end, in each of these cases, you can end up in year 4 just doing economics. So you can come out as a kind of pure economist in the sense of having totally specialized by year 4. So under BESS, if you look at the program, you can see you do a lot of different things in year 1, and then over time you progressively specialize. But it's the kind of most flexible degree because in year 3 you could still be, say, joint business and economics, and then in year 4 you can go either way into business or into economics and so on. Under PPES, you don't have the business dimension, but you have these choices between politics, philosophy, sociology, and economics. So that's a classic degree. In Oxford, the way you study economics is through PPE, politics, philosophy, and economics. We're PPES, we add in the sociology dimension. So again, that's a very classic global combination. And then the other combination in Trinity is TSM, where from the start, you're saying you've narrowed your options. You're only going to choose 2 subjects. And in many combinations, you end up in doing those 2 for 3 years and then specializing in one of them in year 4. But there's some combinations you can study both all the way through. And in that area, let me point out to one classic combination, which is economics and mathematics. So again, if you're coming from a mathematics background, that's a very good combination because you've added to your maths degree a lot of economics, and for the financial world, that's a very powerful combination. So that sends a very strong signal to the quantitative end of finance. It's a 4-year degree, so you're going to see choice between doing a 4-year undergrad here and 3 years elsewhere. But the value of that 4th year is recognized in the kind of a career market because you have more time, you study more, you learn more in 4 years, and that's the 4-year degree here will be standard globally. The 3-year degrees elsewhere in Ireland are anomalous in that way because in the UK system you do A levels and then you do a 3-year degree. Here we don't do A levels, which are more advanced than Leaving Cert. So if you do Leaving Cert, you really should do a 4-year degree. That is really the combination. So of course, if you go to UCD, you can end up with a 4-year degree because you stay on for a master's to make up for that. But then you pay fees for that master's. But anyway, there's lots of choices out there. So Trinity Economics, would have a very strong reputation here locally and also international. So the very top firms will hire out of Trinity, and the very top postgrad programs are very happy to take the best students from Trinity. So every year, we have a lot of people doing fantastically well in terms of careers. The faculty here is very strong. There's people who've done their PhDs at Harvard, Berkeley, LSE, Georgetown, European University, Institute in Florence, LSE again twice, Oxford, Bocconi. Let me emphasize a big issue which is general to Trinity, which I don't think is true in the other universities, is essentially the tutorial system. We put a lot of resources into tutors. So in years 1 and 2, there's a lot of tutors helping you with those introductory economics courses and related courses. There's a very strong student community, which has, over the years proven itself. So there's the Student Economic Review, which publishes a journal and organises various seminars and debates. So every year there's a debate against either Oxford or Harvard. So you get to interact with the top students from other places. The Trinity Economic Forum is a student-run conference in the spring every year, which brings in globally famous economists, business leaders, and so on. And then, of course, the debating societies here, the Phil and the Hiss, have global recognition, and every year there's Nobel Prize-winning economists coming to speak to those groups. And in terms of the nitty-gritty of the different subjects and so on, obviously you can go to the web. So that's my kind of run-through about the advantages of studying economics, and especially here in Trinity. But it's probably more useful for me to see if you have any questions. So please let me know what questions you have. Yeah, at the back, yeah. Yeah, so essentially the Irish educational system being what it is, there's a huge diversity of people coming into, and that's the advantage of a four-year degree, is essentially years 1 and 2 are, honestly speaking, introductory. So we make no assumption that people have done honours maths. We've make no assumption they've done economics for the leaving. Economics for the leaving helps you for about a month. And in fact, in many cases, gives you bad habits because you've learned, archaic economics in the Leaving Cert syllabus, which is designed in 1969 and hasn't been updated. So it's no particular advantage to have done economics before, except you might have heard some of the definitions in the first few weeks. And quantitatively, there's a split. Years 3 and 4, you can basically pretty much disregard the quantitative end, and you take there's a kind of lots of courses on policy economics. So some are a general, how do you go about evaluating policies? Others are specific, such as development economics or the urban economics of how Dublin especially can be designed and planned as a viable city. Distribution, so the policy economics, partly it's about efficiency, but a lot of it is about also distribution. How should we think about welfare systems? How should we think about the criteria in terms of the trade-offs between inequality and efficiency and so on? So there's loads of that. There's loads of that even if you're a single honours economics student, but of course you can do the combinations with political science, sociology, etc. as well. And a lot of lots of TDs have done those kind of combinations because it's good background for doing either politics or for doing public sector to do those combinations. Yep. Did you have a question? Okay. Yep, at the back, yeah. Yeah, so I should say in third year, economics, there's a lot of exchange programs. What's interesting over the time is, historically they would be within the EU, because there's various EU incentives to do exchanges. But we also have now a lot of global exchanges. Now, those are kind of limited in space, but there's a spot in Georgetown, there's a spot in, there's a few in the University of California, so Berkeley, San Diego, and so on. There's Shanghai, there's places in Turkey, Australia. So depending on what you want out of an exchange, some people are, they want to see what life is like in America or Australia and so on. China, again, if you want to build up your emerging market dimension, you might go to China or to Turkey and so on. So there's lots and lots of exchanges. Probably, it's still awkward to go on them because depending on your own resources and so on. I mean, there's not huge financial support. But every year there's probably 50 or 60 going off in third year to do something. Yeah.
For the exchange year, do you pay the fee of the university you're going to, or do you pay completely on that third year?
Yeah, it depends on the. So some are, there's an agreement between Trinity and the corresponding university, so it's a swap. So essentially, you don't pay any difference in terms of cost, but of course there's the living cost of living somewhere else. In other cases, and in addition to those exchanges, some places they say this. Boston College charges a massive, gigantic fee to its students. I think they have some discounted fee, but still much higher than you pay here in Trinity if you go to Boston College. So that is a limitation of the exchanges. I mean, one advantage of economics is because it's a global subject, it's kind of a cohesive to go on an exchange. You can always find subjects out overseas, whereas I know in some other areas, if you're trying to study Irish history, it's hard to find an exchange in China because they don't have courses in Irish history. But in economics, you can go anywhere in the world. It's pretty much the same design. Yep. How modern? Well, yes, I mean, it's an undergraduate degree, so there are classic topics. But of course, so the old cliche in economics is the exam paper is the same every year, but the answers change. Because time changes, the evidence changes. So of course, we have very good faculty who will make sure every year the courses are perfectly up to date. Yeah. So the sub-accounting modules can be counted as economics modules. So let's say you want to be just a straight economics student. There are accounting modules we will take as credit for economics. Alternatively, you can do like an economics and business joint degree. We can do more accountancy because half of your courses are classified as business. But even if you don't take any accounting as an undergrad, it doesn't take all that long at postgrad level to convert to get your professional qualification. Oh, that's a good point, actually. It's important to emphasize for the maths as we teach it, is it's very different to Leaving Cert maths, because in Leaving Cert maths is essentially lined up with physics. So there's things like cylinders, cones, spatial relations, and so on. Whereas the mathematics for economics is much simpler, because essentially it's two-dimensional mathematics. So it's kind of there's calculus and so on, but I mean, I can assure you, if you've done the Leaving Cert, past Leaving Cert, it's not prohibitive. Clearly, the advanced courses, you need to be talented in mathematics. But, so if you're very good at mathematics, there's plenty to challenge you. But it's not, most of our students are not like that. So every year, as I say, there's 10 or 15 students who are in that kind of corner, who are focused on the mathematics of economics, but everyone else is more interested in other dimensions. I mean, let me make one point, which is also, I mean, a lot across the university system, there are a lot of commerce degrees. Every year, thousands and thousands of students graduate with some kind of business or commerce degree, which means it's very hard for employers and so on to differentiate, because it's just so many people do commerce. Whereas doing economics, which has a big business component, economics plus business as a degree, or economics plus mathematics, our students do very well because it's a little bit different. It's so relevant to business, but it's a little bit different. In terms of differentiation for employers, historically, it's a very powerful advantage.